The Oregon Ducks. Don't look now. They're going for a Big Ten title run right now. Only school left their way. Penn State. CBS, 8 Eastern, Lucas Oil Stadium. Oregon favored by 3.5 right now over the Nittany Lions. We'll talk about Oregon in a second, but the angle for Penn State here is fascinating. Like they're kind of like Paul Rudd and Hot Ones right now, and that's not to disrespect Penn State, but like you went into that weekend last Saturday, and you're probably getting ready for the game. Maybe you're changing your music as you're warming up out on the field, and you start getting some texts. It starts popping up. Hey, Ohio State just lost to Michigan. And so you start figuring out, like, whoa, wait a second. So if we win this game right now, we go to the Big Ten championship. So they're like Paul Rudd and Hot Ones. Who thought we'd be here? Not me. Look at us. Who'd have thought? Not me. That's them right now. And the beautiful part about this, with them kind of backdooring their way into the Big Ten championship game, like, don't look. Penn State could win this football game. Like all the jokes around James Franklin in 3-18 against top 10 opponents, Penn State's got a roster now that has massive opportunity to flip that whole narrative on its head around James Franklin in big games, what you can't do at Penn State. Like they got a roster now. And when you rewind the tape to the genesis of this class right now that has a chance to do something big at Penn State, the Nick Singleton, the Katron Allen, Drew Aller, Abdul Carter, even in the 4-team format, this was the team that was expecting internally to go win the Big Ten and go punch a ticket to the college football playoff, again, with the 4-team model. So right now, you're already punching a ticket to the college football playoff by nature of you only losing one game in the regular season, but you got a chance to totally flip that narrative in its ear. Flip the whole thing on its head. I'll say this too. For Penn State, you're not sure what the future looks like going forward. The time is now. The iron is hot. The window is open. Any kind of cliche you want to put to it, that's true about Penn State right now. 4 quarters. What is it? Tim Tebow, 60 minutes. He says 30 minutes, but it is 60 minutes for the rest of your lives if you are Penn State with a chance to get a bye in the first round of the college football playoff. Not too shabby. For Oregon, man, you got Dan Lanning and Dylan Gabriel, and if they have a T-shirt, it would probably say finish the trip. Maybe it's like a cool Nike T-shirt. Maybe it says like finish the gosh darn trip. Maybe that's not as cool. The bottom line here is Lanning has been here before. Last year, you got Washington, and everyone, myself included, was picking against Washington because you're saying, hey, there's no way that Oregon gets beat twice by nature of how that game went in Seattle. Like, this is it for Dan Lanning. Didn't happen that way. They were favored. Michael Penix Jr. did what he does, lost that football game. For Dylan Gabriel, maybe not quite as explicit of an opportunity, but kind of the same deal. When we talked to him earlier this season, man, we had him on the show, and he was just basically talking about how important it was for him to stay level-headed and stay dialed in because he'd been in a similar situation in Oklahoma where they are undefeated, where he's getting Heisman buzz and all this, that, and the other, and then it ends up just coming crashing down one dreary, I guess it was a noon kick against Kansas when he was in Oklahoma. Now you find yourself on the doorstep of finishing through the tape of having the first seed in the college football playoff, being a Big Ten champion, and doing everything that you sought out to do the first part of the season if you're an Oregon Duck. You're right there, man. You're right there. If you are who you think you are, if you're Oregon, if you are the big bully on the block, if you are that team in college football, you finish the trip, you win these kind of games. There is no letdown. There is no half-stepping. You throttle through. This is a classic speed versus aggression kind of matchup when it comes to the Oregon offense and the Penn State defense. Penn State, man, they got a top 20 sack rate in America. Translation, they'll get after you. Abdul Carter has a very sick sack celebration. There's like the ones out and then he like holsters them. I can't really do it because I'm at the desk and also I'm not Abdul Carter. They're going to try to do that a lot to you in this game. All right. Now the zig to that zag is Dylan Gabriel in this offense under Will Stein. The average catch the snap to ball out time for Dylan Gabriel is 2.2 seconds. So they're not trying to sit back and let Abdul Carter and that entire Penn State defense hunt you down. They're trying to get the ball out in the perimeter and let those dudes work. So I think that what we just spoke to with the aggression and the Dylan Gabriel get the ball out quick, that matchup is worth watching. I mean, obviously, if that number for Dylan Gabriel is in the 3-second range, you're probably getting sacked a lot. How do you push that number to a 3-second to 3.5-second range? Well, you got to be able to lock up on defense. And Penn State plays a lot of man coverage. If they can hold it down on the perimeter and get what I would call like a coverage sack is probably not the literal definition of this, but it would essentially be a coverage sack. If you can disrupt a Tez Johnson, Evan Stewart, a Ferguson, a Trayshawn Holden, if you can disrupt those guys out of their breaks, especially early, give them some problems, that just gives more time for Abdul Carter and those guys to get home. Then I did Sutton to get home. Like you allow that Penn State front to start to impact the game by nature of you putting a lid on that wide receiving core for Oregon. So if that happens now, things get a little bit messy. And I think messy is exactly the kind of game that Penn State wants to play. No, Lionel. It kind of opens Pandora's box, if you will. Because the best case for Oregon is if things get messy, okay, we sputter, we punt the ball away, we'll play a game in the 20s. I think we can live that way. At worst, though, things get messy in the sense of, okay, we got the ball going the other way on a strip sack, or we got a pick six or whatever, and that turns into points or, short fields eventually becoming points for Penn State. That's not a way you want to live if you're Oregon. Not a way you want to live, not a way you can afford to live in this game. Just full transparency. So the whole risk it for the biscuit approach is there for Penn State. But now we understand. Anytime you throw a punch, anytime you want to swing for the chin a little bit, you can't also protect the chin yourself. So if you swing big, if you want to get after Dillon Gabriel, you want to be who you are and apply pressure, and I expect that to be what Penn State does, understand now, you expose yourselves for explosive plays. And Oregon is one of the top teams in all of college football in yards per play. So that battle, I think, is going to be fascinating. That's the one, I think, variable or the one matchup, if you will, that could kind of turn this whole game upside down if Penn State's able to get home. Now, if I'm Penn State, I want to go home from this game, if I'm Andy Koltanecki, and I want to look in the playbook, and I want it to just be an empty binder. Like, you leave nothing uncalled. Nothing, man. And I hope that if I'm Penn State, if I'm a Penn State fan, I'm like, I hope and I pray that we took that loss against Ohio State and analyzed the heck out of it and learned from it. Because that was the feeling coming out of the game against Ohio State. You're like, where's Tyler Warren at? Why are we not getting like? I watched the game against USC and we got Bo Perbula in the game. We got double passes. We got Tyler Warren lining up at center and catching touchdown passes. Like, where is that? Give me that. That's who we are. We're this creative, offbeat, quirky, fun offense, and we get inside the red zone twice against Ohio State and end up with 0 points. Now, a little bit of a secession there is like, okay, or concession, I suppose. Caleb Downs is the best defensive player in college football for Ohio State. He did a great job taking away Tyler Warren. Good news, there's no Caleb Downs playing for Oregon in this game. So all that's to say, smoke him if you got him. Like, I want everything called here if I'm Andy Koltanecki, if I'm Penn State. You need to make sure your best players impact the game to the nth degree. Because Tyler Warren, special player. Nick Singleton, special player. Katron Allen, special player. You don't go home without them having in the neighborhood of double-digit touches for all those guys. Sounds like a lot. I feel that way. You got to have something like that, I think, to be able to beat Oregon. Now, Drew Aller's a massive part of that, too. I think his legs and what he showed against Ohio State, we could kind of see round two of that in this spot. He's kind of got this Ben Roethlisberger quality to him. Not necessarily a guy that you're thinking is going to break off a 85-yard touchdown run, but like it's 3rd and 6. You got home, but he actually broke that tackle, and he rumbles and stumbles and falls forward for a gain of 8, and it's like, okay, first down Penn State. We had him dead to rights, getting that punt return team ready, and now we got to go and line it up again with that unit for another 3 to 4 downs. So the path for Penn State here, I think, is swing hard, swing first. We have not seen Oregon, really since Ohio State, have a roster talent matchup that is in the neighborhood of beating them. Also, we haven't seen Oregon, I don't think, at all this year, be in a spot where they play a similar roster talent and they're on their heels. Like the Wisconsin game, call it what you want. I think a lot of us still felt like Oregon's going to pull this one out. Early in the year, Oregon's finding their footing. I get it. They were on their heels there. But like there hasn't been a game where Oregon's legitimately behind the 8 ball to a team with some horses and some talent that can actually finish the trip and put them away. Does that happen in this game? For me, so I'm a man of faith, but in college football, seeing is believing. All right? I trust my eyes, and it's a hard thing for me to get behind projecting the future if I haven't seen it in some way, shape, or form. And I have not seen, in some way, shape, or form, Drew Aller against a real deal, like national title contending roster. Looking at Ohio State, I guess a year ago you would speak about like what Michigan was. Like I have not seen this offense. Now, granted, Andy Koltanecki is a new spin on this, so we'll see. I have not seen enough of this offense to give me confidence like, okay, they're going to be able to go out there and give this Oregon defense problems. They could do it. It's 100% possible. I have not seen it. So with that being said, what have we seen? I've seen Dillon Gabriel answer the bell in big moment after big moment. I've seen Will Stein, whether it be Dylan Gabriel or whether it be Bo Nix, dial up winners. I've seen this wide receiving core be uncoverable at different points in this year. They gave Ohio State problems. So for that reason, I'm going to take Oregon to meet the moment. I think Oregon wins. I actually think Oregon covers. I'm going to go ahead and say that Oregon wins this game 31-21. Keep an eye on how this whole thing goes early, though. That will decide the entire football game. If that happens, again, if you're Dan Lanning, we said it after the Ohio State game. No more potential. No more, oh yeah, he's got next in college football. No, like you win the Big Ten your first year there. It's not hard to see what the future looks like at Oregon. Oh, but Dylan Gabriel's gone next year. Yeah, guess what? You got Dante Moore. Dante Moore is going to be more than capable of keeping this thing on track. You don't think they're going to crush it in the portal? Currently, they are charging towards another top 10 class on the recruiting trail. Like Oregon is very much so rolling. To have more tangible results to put to what they're doing in a win over Penn State in the Big Ten title game would feel like more tangible results, would be more tangible results. The Ducks would be flying. The Ducks would be flying, and Dan Lanning would have not just been a potential guy, like he would have arrived, and we start having conversations around him and what he is in the rankings of the best coaches in the sport right now.